So, hello everybody. It is Jillian. So, let me start off with saying that I had I was remembering stuff yesterday when I was posting about the homeless when I did that Facebook reel about the homeless. And I remember as a kid when my parents and when our family would go into San Francisco and drive around and go places and stuff, and I would see all these homeless. And it really struck me, like I'm coming from Saratoga, and no one's homeless in Saratoga. And then you go into a big city like San Francisco and you see so much homeless out there. You're just like, geez, And I was talking to my mom, when I was a kid, I was like, with all these empty buildings, why don't we house the homeless in the empty buildings? I mean, that was my young, naive way of solving the problems of the world. Is like, well, there's empty houses or empty buildings in San Francisco. Take all the homeless, put them in the empty buildings. It's problem solved. They're off the street. Of course, there's a lot more to it. And so she goes, well, why don't you go and write to the mayor of San Francisco? And so I did. I wrote to Dianne Feinstein. And I said, I don't remember what I said. I really don't. But I think Dianne Feinstein wrote back, or her office wrote back, and said something to the nature of, politicians, what they say, to say, well, we're trying to do that. It's so many programs are probably in place. Whatever a politician would respond to a child who is saying, hey, there's homeless, what the hell? And so I did that Facebook reel of homeless humans who look like, obviously they have major health issues and mental health issues. I'm just like, fuck. And then you see the animals out there with major health issues and major mental illness. I mean, can animals have mental illness? Absolutely. Because some of them are bred to be vicious and have issues, or they're rabid, or who knows what. And I'm just like, oh my God. And so when you really think about it, I mean, we have been our human experiments, and we're bred to be wild. Because when you think about a civilized society, they would not only control reproduction, but there would be all that violence. There'd be diversity, but the violence, the overbreeding, the breaking down would be completely gone. Because let me tell you, it's been a little bit crazy, yes, as far as this weather. It's been hot, the particles, all those particles from the storms, well, not from the storms, from the Canadian wildfires, the firestorms. Oh, it's been pretty bad. And I've been feeling them. Not so much the sickness like a few months ago, but like you feel like you're like I felt like my digestive system was just completely going, what the hell? It was processing new particulates in the air when you think about it. And so then the body's going through a major energy conversion, and it has to release those particulates. Like you literally have to open up your system. And a lot of those particulates, they probably, since there's a lot of minerals, I could see why my shit was a little bit more hard, a little harder than usual. And it was like pulling out stalactites and stalagmites out of your ass, because the body, like you're fighting against like the demon wanting to stay in the body, and then you and your body are working to push it out and pull it out, like Neo in the Matrix. And that's essentially what you have to do in this type of environment, is you have to not only open your system, but you have to eat a bunch of food. Okay? Like a bunch of food, so you can get that energy conversion. Because these particles, with whatever they're doing in the skies, we know they're doing stuff in the skies with minerals, or you can call them heavy metals. And then you add in the wildfires and all of that obviously develops a conductive atmosphere. And you're breathing that in, and that's also causing a conductive atmosphere in your body, then accelerating everything. And so when people don't feel stuff, see, that's the danger of not feeling stuff in this environment. When you're like, everything is great, I don't feel anything. I don't understand what Jillian's talking about. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm flitting from here, 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 and here. It's great until things start breaking down. It's great until you don't remember something. See, that's the danger of being cured. That's the danger of being so smug and that you don't feel anything. And that's the danger of not eating fat and not bringing on the sickness when you think about it. Bringing on the evolution. Bringing on the weight. Because again, when those are underweight, and I'm going to say this, and I can't impress upon this enough, those that are underweight, okay, you're in a cured state. Maybe you're mostly muscle, hardly any fat. So you're going to be like a live wire. You're going to be doing this, doing that, flitting around here and there. Your kids will be doing the same thing. Everyone's happy, right? No one's feeling anything. Everyone's cured until vital organs shut down. Until all of a sudden you don't remember your kid's name. Until all of a sudden you don't remember where you were the last 50 minutes. You just completely blacked out. Like, not like you blacked out, but you now lost a memory. A major one, a short-term memory. That's the danger of feeling smug that you're cured in this environment, especially if you're underweight. But even those who are bigger, and they're mostly muscle, they're also running the risk of so many things when they're not releasing demons. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I'm telling you, adding on the extra weight, and you saw that my weight fluctuation. You saw when I was feeling puffy, looking puffy, and I was still up early and doing what I got to do, but I had enough fat in me. And if I feel the heart palpitations, my heart was strong enough to deal with the accelerated atmosphere. It would just pump, and it wouldn't go into any heart attack mode, no stroke mode. I didn't feel like, I didn't feel scared. I just keep feeding the energy and sleeping when I needed to and eating, because there would be a massive amount of hunger at some point. But I'm telling you, people are just like, well, why should I bring on the sickness? Because I'll tell you, being cured in this environment, especially if you're underweight or obese with diagnosable conditions, it's a recipe for potential diet suddenly or an onset of something so aggressive, so fast moving that you won't have time to get ahead of it. That's what happens is going on in these diet suddenly groups. And those that have been afflicted with that type of situation, they have predisposed issues in their genetic line. And there's probably cultures that have that even more so. And they're experiencing how aggressive this climate is. They're denying the climate change. And I get it, because climate's always been changing, and you never wanted to attribute why people died and why they had the diseases to the instability every cold and flu season and spring season. But since they've given people absolution with the vees way back in 2019, 2020, and they're not going to change their lifestyle or belief system or anything. They're going to say that the media is lying to you, and there's no such thing as climate change, and everything is the vees' fault. Okay? And part of me is just like, okay, they need to have that if-then type of programming. That is the embedded if-then programming. And they're going to be experiencing even more so in these diet suddenly groups. Obviously they are. There are so many people in those diet suddenly groups that are experiencing so much from this accelerated particle exchange energy conversion, also known as climate change. And of course, they're in the diet suddenly groups blaming the you-know-what. And so then they're all just talking about their issues, and those who are taken down notch by notch by notch, they're still going to use their remedies and do their surgeries and their holistic stuff. And they're still going to ask each other what to do for this, and that. They're not really going to change. Okay. Neither are their friends and family who never got the V. So when they think they didn't get the V, they're home free. And so they're not going to change. That's the psychological operations. When you blame something like a V where someone doesn't take it, and so they think they're home free, they think they're safe. But then if they get afflicted or something, then they'll blame someone who had the V. And so then there you go. But they'll never change what they do. They'll never pull back on their lifestyle. They'll never re-examine what else is a factor. And so the if-then programming, which is such an extraordinary programming, is what then programs people to be a certain way and radicalized. Because you can if-then program documents and macros and micros on Excel when you put in figures that have specific formulas and arguments. And so that can, so the Excel and all of that computer programming can translate then into biological programming, doing the if-then with proteins. That's what the V's are. It's if this happens, if they get exposed to this type of algorithm, this type of protein, with this type of script, then produces this. Oh, God. People and their alarms. Wow. So that's the if-then programming in the V's, is programming proteins. If something like, if this gets exposed, then these antibodies will replicate. And I don't know if there's a specific rate to the replication. Oh, God, why do people in their fucking alarms? So let me just go to wake up, neighbors, your freaking car alarm is going off. Oh, wait, it got off. Jeez. Ugh. Car alarms. All right. Okay, so that's the thing with if-then programming. That's in the V's. It's in all therapies. It's in behavior modification. If you do this, then this will happen. And that could be parents that are trying to program their kid to be a specific way, or you're programming your body to do something. If I go and pull out the shit, if I go and do this with my rectum, then it'll open up my body and it will bring out the poop. And so I'm training my body. I'm doing if-then kinetic energy to my own body to train it to release. Whereas before, it wouldn't do that. Because before, no one talked about the lower part of your alimentary canal. They were saying, oh no, take a medicine, an herb to do an if-then. So you're relying on somebody prescribing you or recommending you something in the holistic or allopathic world. And so then your body gets programmed by that herb, by that supplement, by that detox, by that prescription drug. And so you're allowing something else program you versus you programming you and understanding why it is your body does what it does and why it doesn't do what it does. And so now you're realizing how the programming has been embedded in cultures, how they develop certain cultures. And of course, geography and economics, the economy, geography, economy, culture, religion, politics, all of that come into play. Okay, all that come into play. So let me just read this. And so we were bred to be wild. We were not bred to be literally civilized or anything like that. We were bred to be wild. Just like the animals out there in the wild, when they start breaking down, and that's when they reproduce a baby, an offspring. And then the weakest link then gets attacked and eaten up. Because when you have predators out there, like the lions and zebras, so you have zebras, they're all strong except for a few. And so the few that are not strong are going to be taken out by the lions, who look for the weakest link in that chain. And then that's Darwinism, survival of the fittest. That's how strong genetic lines stay in the population. But man has figured out how to control that in some way and develop that in some way, but also control that and develop predators in the society, develop predators in the economy, in your politics, in your religion, in your science, and also develop prey. Okay? And so, but in all reality, we don't have to fall in that line of predator and prey on a macro level. On a micro level, yes, you're supposed to, when you go out and mix in with diverse company and someone has a stronger genetic line than you do, and their microbes come into your body, you might feel something strong, but you're not going to resist it. You're going to let it assimilate, let your body assimilate to it, and then you get upgraded to the level of your environment, to the people around you. But what we've done is we've resisted that type of Darwinism. We've tried to become cured, right? Because we have so many people with different cultures in their body, different microbes, and some are stronger than others, that the weakest link over here won't be able to handle being around someone strong. So then they develop biotech to be that intermediary and bring in something that's relatively like that person who is really strong with strong microbes, so that they can still assimilate and not die in the presence of someone really strong. That's what biotech and the vees are for, is to be that intermediary between someone is strong, someone weak. However, we haven't reacted to sickness in the proper way over many generations of genetic lines. And so it doesn't matter what biotech does trying to remedy or bring that transition in. That person doesn't have what it takes to do that energy conversion. Okay? And so we were bred to be wild. We were bred to act like the wild kingdom. Kill or be killed. And you think about it. Not literally when you think, well, yeah, I guess if you're mixing in with really nefarious company. But when you're in relative civility around people who are relatively predictable, who don't have major violence or unpredictable, then it's the microbes about kill or be killed. And so we were bred as human experiments. And now you have a chance to be of a higher intelligence and release the old if-then programming. And so remember truth. People say truth this, truth that. Remember, truth is all relative to the programming. So when you read about if-then, now where did I learn about if-then? Okay, you're like, well, where did she learn this? When I was in Pleasant Hill, California, and I was high as a kite off of marijuana with a friend. And she didn't do the pot, but her husband did. And we were getting high, and I was just like, oh God, this pot's really strong. And so I just sort of like laid there on the couch watching TV with her and him. And it was just like, okay. And she was just like, all right. And so she was talking about if then, and she's in biotech. She went to the same university my dad went to, the same one over there in Rhode Island, the same university. And she was mentioning if then, because she's saying that she was going to go for a job with a bank. So you can work at biotech and then transfer your skills to a bank, and it's all programming. Okay. And she was doing the computer models for whatever. And so she mentioned if then. And so I remember that was back in 1990s, maybe the early 2000s, maybe somewhere in the mid early, I forget because I was high back then. But that's where I learned if then. And it had to do with Excel. So I think I was mentioning something about Excel, that I was going for a new job and it was using Excel skills. And I was so interested in the formulas, how to put in the formulas, putting up in their box and doing the equal sign and then put in the string of programming in that box in Excel. And then I would put in figures and then it automatically do all the adding or subtraction or division or whatever. And she was like, yeah, I do Excel too. I think I'm trying to remember now how that came about, how that whole context of the conversation, but she was mentioning if then and programming through if then. And I'm like, oh, okay, so she's in biotech. She's going into then a bank to go do all their computer stuff. Okay, interesting. And so that memory stayed stuck with me. And so then I'm able to use that memory from back in Pleasant Hill, back in the 1990s, 2000, from a conversation when I was high as a fucking kite. And I'm able to apply it to today's situation. That's how, when you finally release all that excessive programming, all the trauma, all the bullshit, then you're going to get to the root of, you're going to get to be so clear on everything you've ever been exposed to that is pertinent to what's going on in your world today. And I'll tell you, you will be able to develop so many things of way above and beyond what you're even doing today. You don't even know what you could possibly develop once you get rid of all that excessive programming and you train your mind. See, that's the thing too, is I've been training my mind to pick apart everything and understand the formulas, pick apart every single fucking thing out there to understand it and then find the connections. And so true and false is all relative to perception, intention, and outcome. The syntax of if then is if, parentheses, logic, test, value, if true, value, if false, okay? The first argument tells the function what to do if the comparison is true. So something is true, and this is the argument, then something must happen. The second argument tells the function what to do if the comparison is false. Okay, so when you put in something, if you do this, if something, if you, I'm trying to think of an example. If you're exposed to alcohol, then mucus will come up. That's an argument. If you're exposed to a certain amount of alcohol relative to your lifestyle predisposed issues, that's the thing about when it comes to foods and drugs and spirits and alcohol and all that. You have 69 trillion microbes, and you may not get an immediate reaction like a correlation equals causation, because you're not just two proteins in a petri dish, or a protein in a petri dish that's being manipulated with chemistry and other stuff. You are 69 trillion microbes with infinite amount of proteins that make up those microbes. And so if you take a bottle of Jack Daniels and you drink it, then you're going to feel drunk. Okay? That is like a programming in the body. And so they've done all the tests that if you take maybe 5 ounces of alcohol on a body that's 120 pounds, then you'll be at certain 0.08 or whatever that breathalyzer level of alcohol that's in your system. Okay? So there is if-thens used in breathalyzers, drug tests. If you have so many different antibodies relative to the THC that you've been exposed to, then it means you recently smoked pot. So there's all these if-then arguments. And then you can also translate that from the drug and alcohol tests to, of course, the vaccines, and then also translate it to politics. If we get people, if we lower, if we take away, if we raise the taxes, then people are going to pay more, and so we'll have money for this, this, and this. So there's if-then arguments in politics. And both sides will argue about whether or not that should happen, right? And there's science, we know about the science stuff. And then the religion. If you believe in Jesus Christ and Allah and Yahweh and, I don't know, Adam Smith, like in the Mormons, then you'll be absolved of all your sins. You will be welcome in open arms to whatever church, and they will give you everything you could possibly want. They'll give you business, they'll give you a family, they'll give you friends, they'll give you associations, they'll give you a whole support system if you do this, this, and this. And there's the positive and negative reinforcement. If you don't believe in Jesus Christ and Yahweh and Jehovah and Adam Smith, then you will be excommunicated, left by yourself with no family, with no significant other, with no friends, with no associations, and no business, no easy access to business. And so those that are in deficit, who cannot be on their own, they will then fall into the if-then, that I will then believe in Jesus Christ, Yahweh, Jehovah, Adam Smith, and Allah. And then there's the programming goes from there. If you eat this, and this will happen, as far as, I guess, religious traditions. Okay? And so religion could be an if-then, based upon then how people are programmed to need other people all the time. And then if you don't get a V, then you will potentially, this is the programming in the medical world. If you don't get a V, then you are exposing everyone to everything, and you're gonna harm yourself by not having the protection and all that programming, right? And then other people on the other side of it say, if you do get a V, then you are going to be communicable. You're going to be this, 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 and this. And so you see all the if-then programming are in conflict with each other. Okay, so you could do if-then with everything that you've ever studied and worshipped and believed and was an activist for and against. Okay? And so if-then is everywhere. If-then, and I'm like, that was a pretty significant piece of the whole pie that I didn't realize I was exposed to back in the 1990s. Didn't realize how significant that was until now, 2023, and I'm about almost 50 years old. Because truth is all relative to how someone is programmed to react, and then the hormones. So when you're part of a congregation of people, and you've been exposed to all the words of Jesus Christ and the Bible and everything else, and then there's hormones attached, the pleasure centers. And then you bring in the music. That's more reinforcement of the programming. I mean, so even in Judaism, the congregation we belong to, singing was a major part of the traditions. Friday night services and high holidays, Sunday school. Well, not so much Sunday school, but the prayer sessions was all about singing. And singing in certain tones. Okay, and then there's food afterwards and all that, and that's all the reinforcement, being fed after all of that energy conversion. And then you're paying for that participation because you pay your dues. Belong to any church, I get. Well, maybe not churches. You can go to any church. Well, no, you pay your dues to do all the activities. So anybody can go to a service. Services are free to the public. It's then participating in the activities. If you want to become a member of a congregation, then you pay your dues. You pay whatever amount of money per year. Okay? And if you don't pay your money, then you're excommunicated. But you can still go to services. That's all free. And so there's all that if-then programming in Judaism, in Islam, in Christianity, in Catholicism, same thing, in Buddhism. If-then is everywhere. And then the words, all the fluffy words that are developed for each context, the jargon, covers up that actual programming. And so then people get snowed by the words and then all the tones around those words, because those words then develop traditions and gatherings and then meditation and singing and doing the and all this shit, right? And then you see all these different religions get developed through the reinforcement of the sound, the smell, the taste, the touch, the vision. And that's all if-then. That's programming your hormones. Okay? That's programming your hormones through sound, taste, touch, vision, public acceptance, validation. Oh, it goes deep. That's what I'm saying. It's going to be so hard for some people to deprogram because of how programmed they are and how much in deficit, and do they really want to bring on the pain of the substance? Because again, feeling cured in this environment, it's dangerous if you are of smaller substance. That's why I got so pissed off yesterday when my husband was saying he's going to fast. I'm like, where the fuck did you hear that from? He's like, oh yeah, some dude on TikTok. And that's why I was like, you better not do not, all those freaking gurus about fasting and doing the whole autophagy, whatever the hell you want to call it. And so what they're doing is they're cannibalizing the cells by starving, fasting. And they're like, oh yeah, it's cell rejuvenation. Bullshit. You're just basically eating up the body's ability to evolve. He says, because it's healthy. No, it's not. You're starving. It's going to age you faster. You have enough substance. Thank God the last 20 something years. Well, 20. We've been only married for about 12 years. Thank gosh for the last 10 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. He was on the truck taking on the fat. Because remember, you saw that Facebook reel. He was skinny back then. He was fucking skinny. He was all muscle. My husband was all muscle way back when I met him. And you saw that Facebook reel of him from when I found him. Okay. And then, of course, our alignment, our merging together of the two worlds. He has the fat to do the energy conversion. He has the substance. For him to then fucking starve himself and get down to the lowest common denominator of that little guru, whoever the hell it is, would age him faster. And in this environment, and with the job that he does in the trucking industry, he would expire faster. He would age faster, expire faster, and who knows what else. I freaking was livid. And it wasn't like anyone's fault, but I'm just like, that's why I laid it into all the skinny fucks that are recommending starvation and fasting and herbs and extracts and all the other bullshit that's out there. And I'm sorry if you're skinny, but don't recommend shit to my husband. And you should not be giving any health advice to anyone that's bigger than you are, because you don't have anything to you. You think you're going to survive this over time if you don't add some more pounds to you? I'm serious. I'm really fucking serious. The skinny people in this society right now, with what's going on, it's going to work against you because the particles have accelerated. The atmosphere is more intense and you ain't feeling shit. And if you're not feeling shit, you're not evolving. And when you're cured in a dynamic environment, that is a recipe for a died suddenly, or a sudden onset of a diagnosable condition that will be fast moving and will take you out faster. You won't have a chance to redirect. You will not have a fucking chance to redirect because it's that quick how fast these cancers and diagnosable conditions are fast moving in this environment. That's why you have to gain the weight as quick as you can so you have enough substance to deal with this shit. It's like having gas in your car and not having enough gas for a long ass trip. Eventually it's going to peter out in the middle of the desert if you're not having enough gas to get you from point A to point Z. I've seen a guy a couple days ago who ran out of gas in front of my house. How the fuck does that happen? But he probably didn't have his gas gauge working. So his car just stopped. So he had to get out of his car, take his 5-gallon gas tank and walk to the gas station and come back. He has kids in the car. So I guess he kind of knew something was going to happen. He couldn't get to the gas station, so he went down our street. It looked relatively safe because he left kids in the car by themselves right in front of my house. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, that's what's going to happen with people. They're going to run out of gas before they even know it. But they don't even know it because they don't feel shit. They're riding high on the energy, but they don't realize they don't have enough substance. They're fucking working off of fumes. But hey, they look great, right? Hey, they're sexy. They got kids. Okay? Will you be around to make sure your kids are okay? Are your kids going to gain some weight and add more substance so they can survive this? How much are they in deficit? Do you even know? And so as Kevin Johnson would say at St. Hope, there are no shortcuts in life. So that was from when I was working at Sacramento High, and when the basketball player Kevin Johnson from the Phoenix Suns was the CEO of that whole school. And that was back when they were doing all the politics around charter schools and education and all of that. And so I don't know what came of that later on. I left that school a long time ago. But I remember that quote was, there are no shortcuts in life. You really, literally, if you want longevity, you have to pay your dues. You're going to have to feel stuff. I mean, I guess if you want to gamble with what you have and think that just eating the food that you have today and not feeling anything is going to get you by, in this environment, if you don't feel anything, and if you're not gaining the weight and going through the energy fluctuations and conversions, and you're really skinny, what chance do you have? What chance do you have? I'm going to put it out there. Because now you're seeing the system flip the script. Yes, they're showing the 50-year-olds all with six-packs like Jennifer Aniston and J-Lo. J-Lo's pretty big, bigger than Jennifer Aniston. But you see that Jennifer Aniston, you can see that, yeah, she is 53 and she might be skinny with six-pack, but how long will that last before it ages her, or who knows what might happen and her predisposed issues. But you're also seeing other stars that are gaining the weight, like a Selena Gomez who's dealing with lupus. She doesn't care about sucking her stomach in anymore. That's great. She has to gain the weight to deal with that energy conversion of having lupus. And I know some people with lupus that are really skinny, okay, out there. And they're, and they're cannabis and all that. And so, the world's a fucking mess. Okay? And so, I was thinking about people who are suffering and breaking down. And I'm thinking about animals and humans. Okay? And then I'm thinking about those Facebook reels that I did about homelessness and the suffering around homelessness, the suffering of the animals being bred for so many things and bred for humans who are lonely, who need companionship because they're breaking down. And it's just like, that's an endless loop. That's why we're in a great reset, because this can't go on forever. This is too much. This is literally too much. And so these are my thoughts. I think a lot about the world and the world of getting caught in the loop of suffering constantly. The commodification of intentionally causing suffering and then ending somebody's suffering. And that is $1 billion trillion business. I mean, really, will the world finally end the suffering? Not necessarily, because there's always going to be human advancement. And there'll be pods of people who won't know any better, who won't know the access to the J world, right? And so they'll do what they do over there, even in America, anywhere else on Facebook. They're going to do what they do, and they're going to suffer. And they may not have the capacity to program themselves. They will always be subject to somebody else's programming or sustain the programming that was given to them at birth and die with that programming, or take on the government programming. I'm not saying just the education and the occupations, but also the biological programming. Okay, so, and then they will definitely suffer when it starts breaking down, and it will inevitably break down, or it will die suddenly, one of the two. Okay, so there will be suffering, but I'm introducing a potential higher intelligence that will not live off the suffering and commodify it and exploit themselves, their children, as well as anyone else around suffering. There will be a pod of people, and they could be scattered all over the globe. And that's the people in the J world, if they actually get it. Okay? So I think a lot about the world, and the world of getting caught in the loop of suffering constantly, the commodification of intentionally causing suffering and then ending someone's suffering. And that is $1 billion trillion business. And that's a veterinary system too. If you are going to breed a dog, you're forced to take care of it. So this is my world. This is my utopian society. If you're going to breed a dog, and you see it all over Facebook, then you will be forced to take care of it. And all the puppies, not sell them. But if that person is abusive, if that person can't take care of that dog and the puppies, all of them. I'm not even talking about the puppies. If you can't take care of the puppies and the dog together, then they'll be taken to a sanctuary where it's manned around the clock to take care of these animals going through that temporary cycle of dying but not reproducing. And then the males and females will be separated in that animal sanctuary so they don't reproduce again. But there's not going to be any spaying or neutering. And then that person is not allowed to have any more animals. That person is now banned from having animals. And if they bring in an animal in their house, after being banned from having an animal, then they will go to jail forever. Okay, Joy, that's a little draconian. Well, that's a message saying that life is fucking precious. And you are commodifying life. You are cheapening life. You are making money off the suffering of that mother and having to bear all those babies. And you have no regard for that mother, and you have no regard for those puppies. Now, if you have a big enough house and you have a nice house and doggy doors, and you will be around for those puppies 24/7 and that dog 24/7. You don't have a job because you're independently wealthy. You have a big, huge backyard, and you have a doggy door, and you have food, and you have money. Then have a dog and puppies, and be the sanctuary. And you make sure the males and females are not together. You have to separate them out so you're not going to have 50 million fucking dogs in that house. And then we won't be dealing with it. Then there'll be forever dogs that then won't be reproducing because it'll be the best copy. And then we won't be dealing with any kind of maladies with antibiotics. And then biotech has to come in and train people how to take care of animals that were once temporary dogs to make them forever dogs. But that, again, that's another transition. But that's what I'm saying is that if you don't take care of that dog and all the puppies you brought into this world, then you go to fucking jail. Then you go to jail. That's my utopian society, right? But if you are a bad owner, relative to the laws, you'll also go to jail. Does neutering and spaying them cause suffering? Fuck yeah, it does. They're getting butchered through the neuter and spay because that owner can't guarantee that that dog ain't going to get out, or that owner is going to bring in other males and females that might have sex with each other. So the only way to stop the reproduction and control is to then butcher that animal. That's a fucked up way for you to have pleasure, to make that animal suffer so you can be comfortable. Oh, that's what I'm saying. That's once I've had an animal for 8 fucking years and she never got out. No one ever had to pick her up off the street or in a shelter and, oh gosh, she got out. I never had to put on Facebook, my dog got out, someone look for her. Ever. I was mostly here. 90% of the time I was here for my fucking dog. 90% of the time. I think maybe 1 or 2 months I was at a temp job and she was home by herself for 8 hours. But then I left that temp job and started writing the J Juice book. And so then I've been home ever since. And that was in 2016. Okay. Okay, so, and we got her in 2015. And she was spayed and she had other issues. They had to remove a tumor before I even got her. So she had already damage to her. And so these no-kill shelters may sound like, oh, it's great, no kill, but no, they basically damage them through the veterinary system, fix them up, right? Which I get. And then let them recover, and then they go and adopt them out. And so then someone gets a dog that has all these issues, but it's covered up by all the scars and all the antibiotics, superficial healing, and the dog starts breaking down. And then that's where the suffering begins. And that was what I dealt with. And it will never fucking happen again, ever. I will not take on anyone else's fucking problem that they had. That's what goes on in these shelters. They keep getting rehomed and they keep getting $100 from the people, and people keep breeding them over there, over there and over there. And these dogs are out and then put out there again. Oh, it's a fucked up loop. And then people are like, oh, I'm a savior. I'm saving all the fucking animals. No, you're just reinforcing the same bullshit. Someone's going to breed cats and dogs and rats and whatever and elephants, and then someone's going to go and save them over here. And so, no, you don't see me have an animal. I don't have a cat and I don't have a dog in this house because I learned my fucking lesson. It only took once because I've never owned my own animal ever in my life. This was the first time with my husband I owned an animal. And it was a lesson for those 8 years. And even at the end, it was a fucked up lesson at the end. It was the most fucked up lesson ever at the end. And I won't go through that again. Ever. Ever. I'll get fish if I want a pet. But I will not get a pet in this death society, in this death culture. I will not get a pet in this culture. It has to change. Biotech has to be on board. And so does neutering and spaying cause them suffering? Fuck yeah, it does. That's trauma to the body. And so if you can't take care of a dog and all the puppies you let come into existence, it will go to a sanctuary. And if you're caught with any more, you will go to jail forever. Breeding any animal for profit in this society with so many suffering and homeless animals and humans, it's fucked up. It's all fucked up. And let me tell you, my husband, he saved, what do you call that? A bearded dragon. Okay. When we were in Florida, my husband had all the pit bulls. He had all the different iguanas and fish. And I only had, I think we had cats when we were raised, we were raised with cats and one dog that eventually was given away because no one wanted to take care of it. And then when I was a nanny, I looked after other people's animals, and I've always looked after other people's cats or hung out with them when I was a roommate with people. Never had my own animal, really. Never. So having my dog Sugar was the only animal I ever had on my own, and I was basically 100% responsible. Even when my husband was home, I was the one that's letting her in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out all the time. And so And so I put in 1,000% of the time to that animal and thought maybe I could redirect her from being death to life. And obviously that wasn't going to happen. And I realized that, yeah, the poop is the programming. And so what I was trying to do is get all that poop out of her system so then we can reprogram her with the food that I was giving her. All the fatty food plus the meat and the milk and all that stuff. And the dog food and the high protein plus then the milk. But the trauma to her was just too much from the veterinary system. I couldn't redirect. But that's also, you have to realize, is the poop in your system. When you're not bringing in food and you're not releasing, then all that programming is still in there causing you the torture, but it also is causing, a type of gassing of you, like a methylation. Okay, DNA methylation, you heard of that? I used that before. And in this environment with all the particles and everything else, that's why you have to release and take on substance all the time, because a lot of DNA methylation is going on. People are getting methylated. Their cells are methylated to a point where then it causes breakdown. Okay? And so that was why I was really focused on getting that poop out of her system. Because that was the old programming. And I remember when I did finally release her anal glands at one point, all that yellow liquid was coming out. Everything was coming out. And so then I'm okay, I'm going to keep with that stupid tumor that she had. And she was hard for her to do anything. I would be the one to help her get rid of stuff. But it just became too much for everybody. So that's the thing is that the poop is the programming. And you have to develop that programming yourself. But biotech has to develop that programming first. They have to develop forever dogs that have that fecal programming already built into that genetic line. And then the animal can have meat, milk, cheese, eggs, some fruits and some vegetables in the forms that are safe and will have the same kind of outcome as that forever human. And then when the climate does become unstable, not to give it antibiotics. And if it happens to get a cut or a scrape, then you just bandage it up and use some salt and water and whatever. But don't be adding more trauma to the body, like surgeries and all that. And then watch what you do with your animals so they don't become hurt. Watch their nails. But then biotech will develop animals that are made for that geography, for that lifestyle, that geography, that climate. And that's when the climate calms down. Right now, the climate's fucked up. I wouldn't want to have an animal in this climate. I would not. Okay? And so, yeah, the poop is the programming. The poop can gas you to death, and the poop can also give you your lifestyle and your belief systems and everything that you've programmed into your body, mind, and spirit. And when you take on other programming, then you can release and assimilate and release. Okay? And so, so breeding animals for profit in this society with so many suffering and homeless animals and humans, it's all fucked up. It's all fucked up. And so my opinion, I think we should have animal sanctuaries around the clock, staff take care of them, and we don't adopt them out. Because unless that person is a forever human, there is no guarantee that dog is going to be taken care of properly. Because when the human starts breaking down or things come up, especially in this environment, that poor animal is now subject to that human. That animal will not be taken care of properly. People go through dogs like fucking water. They go through animals like it's water. It's insane. It's insane to watch. And so, unless you can prove you are a forever human to take care of a forever dog or cat, but forever dogs will not be in temporary shelters or sanctuaries, only the wild dogs. So forever animals most likely will not drop seed or eggs because the animal will be the best copy in controlled conditions. It would not be made to be bred over and over again like in the wild. Wild animals, wild humans. I think we were bred to be wild. Look at our society today. We're dealing with cavemen and cave women. Okay? We're dealing with that. And they are breeding and reproducing like in a farm. Dropping children, dropping eggs, dropping everything. And no one's taking in the intelligence or not learning and unlearning. I mean, it's pretty obvious now what's going on. Seriously, humans right now have been farmed and bred. And that word farmed came from John Oakes, human farming. Absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. No different than a goat and sheep and a goose. And then everyone taking care of forever dogs should be screened. And if they are forever dogs, they live forever, which means breeding will be very controlled, left only up to biotech. And so the animal sanctuaries are for the temp animals. Forever animals will be placed with forever humans. And so the animal sanctuaries from temp animals will be staffed around the clock to deal with the death or the dying of that animal and keep them separate so they don't reproduce. Putting all the males in one place, put all the females in another place, so that way you don't have to cause trauma to the body by taking away the reproductive system. And so if the humans are temporary, no animal should deal with a temporary human taking care of them, because that human may not be responsible or around long enough to take care of that animal. And when the temporary humans break down and the animal pays for it, the animal suffers because that human is breaking down. That is also the dangers of putting temporary humans with forever dogs. When a human starts breaking down with forever dog, they could potentially hurt that dog, cat, and cause trauma and then cause other issues. And then that human deals with that trauma with antibiotics, and other things will hurt the dog over time. Then the dog cat suffers while the human suffers, and they are both breaking down. And then the dog cat gets out and reproduces. That's why we're in this mess. But it was all probably intentional. When humans stop breaking down, they could be excellent caretakers to the world and to the animals they take care of. That's the new world, in my opinion. And if you have a child or a baby, you should not have animals because the animal will take a back seat. Oh, I've seen it too. Animals, when they're not fun anymore and they're breaking down, and so they're left by themselves because the kids are getting all the attention. The animal's only there just to be a plaything temporarily, and when it grows up or it has issues, oh, that animal is disposable. And it's in the fucking shelter or it gets rehomed somewhere else. That will end up eventually in the shelter. And that's where the shelter system gets so much money. The government gets so much money from all the people breeding and wanting animals because they're like, oh yeah, my kid never had a dog. My kid, oh, Jesus Christ. And there's that poor animal is fucking suffering. And so if you have a child or a baby or children, whatever, you should not have animals because the animal will take a back seat and just become a commodity and disposable. And the honeymoon period will be over. You know the kid will get tired of taking care of that animal. It happens all the time. Kids cannot even take care of themselves, much less the parents take care of themselves, really, because the animal requires a lot more than that child or that family can give to that dog or cat. Taking care of my dog was a full-time job. It was a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week venture, and my dog never got out. No one ever had to retrieve her from the shelter, or at any point in 8 years I had her. Okay? And so when the climate changed, everything got fucked up. She was bred to be a temporary dog, and I'm a forever human. Literally, I'm a forever human. It was not a match over time. She was not made to evolve with me. That's why everything is fucked up with this transition, which is why I want no part of the death world if I can help it. So no, I'm not going to save any more animals out there. I'm not. I know people are like, oh, that's so horrible. Okay, you can go be a fucking savior and spend all your time saving animals while people in your community, your friends and family, are reproducing them on the other side while you're fucking saving them. So you really think you're really saving anything? No, you're just part of a fucked up system that you have no idea you're part of. And you can give a shit because guess what? You get validation. Everyone's bowing down to you saying you're a savior. When in reality, once you get to the root of the problem, stop having the system stop people breeding so many animals and so many fucking humans who end up homeless, human experiments, drug addicts, alcoholics, fucking bullies. Oh, but no, we want to go and save them. We want to be a fucking hero, a superhero. Yeah, you see where that's getting us? You see where that's gotten us? More fucking suffering so you can go save something else? So I walked away from all that bullshit. The thing is, like with me, with my situation, is they went to war with Vietnam, and then all the babies came out. Scientists and whoever else that didn't have any kids wanted to adopt these kids. So I was brought in intentionally. I was adopted intentionally with a very specific purpose. Okay, it wasn't like, oh, they just wanted to complete their family because they were lonely. No, my parents had a very specific intention. And it was actually honorable when you think about it. It was actually fucking honorable. They meant to do something with this child. Not to just be another fucking waste to the system, but do something with this child. And they definitely did a fucking bang up job. They did an excellent job. Okay? And so if you're going to have an animal and have a human, you make sure they're programmed so they can evolve. Make sure they're programmed. And it's going to be messy. You got to put in the fucking time. You got to put it, and my mom did put in the time. And eventually it was out of her hands. I was my own person, and I was going to act out whatever program that was programmed, and we'll see what happens. So now when I think about it, I don't resent her at all for anything. I'm taking on her programming of her trying to change the world too. And seeing all the craziness in the world that I'm sure even back in the 1960s, they saw the craziness, but they had to develop craziness to get rid of the craziness. And it was going to be, decades and decades of craziness until things finally level out. And someone puts out an actual thought process that highlights the bullshit in this world. Okay? And so I want no part of the death world if I can help it. And so there's so many things I want to change in this world, but I can't change the world. I can only change myself. And hopefully science will catch up. So yeah, to have a kid because you think that that's a tradition, and then your parents want you to have a kid so they can have grandkids, right? Or because you're lonely, or because you're trying to follow something, what are you programming this kid for? What's this kid gonna fucking do in the future? That's the thing. That's what's going on, is we have people are breeding children, breeding animals, and these animals don't really have a purpose. The kids don't really have a purpose, except to be someone's plaything for a minute, and then when they become difficult, see you later, bye. But Jillian, what about those who need companionship? And both are temporary. With any transition, there is mass amounts of suffering. That's the horror of evolution. It's very uncomfortable when you wake up to the horror of what you signed up for and what you were born into. Yes, that will be the suffering in this world. Is watching temporary humans with temporary animals do the most horrific shit, or suffer as they both are breaking down. And you feel bad for both the human and the animal going through that breakdown. Oh, it's bad. And so, or those who choose to suffer will be on an island somewhere else. Okay. But when the forever people get tired of watching all that suffering, they get tired of watching all the death and destruction and deterioration and abuse and rampant drugs and medicine used on living things, they'll get tired of the commodification of life and the lack of respect for life. Eventually, they'll want to stop the suffering and stop the suffering of animals being bred over and over and over and over again. Okay, so again, I was talking about that bearded dragon. My husband wanted a bearded dragon, and we had a bearded dragon, and then we gave it back to we gave it to someone who was really good at taking care of bearded dragons. She had her bearded dragons, and she also worked at a pet shop. And I have people that own pet shops, that work at pet shops. I understand that that's a business people want, and that's a business that you understand. And there's so much of that animal trafficking out there. There's a huge business in exotic animals, and these animals do suffer for that. The way they're being smuggled in and all that. And yeah, the system is trying to stop that too. But again, when there's a business for it, when there is a huge market for exotic animals, then the animals get smuggled in, and that's the suffering. People stop buying the exotic animals, there won't be a suffering, there won't be a need for it. But since people buy all those exotic animals, that's why there is an exotic trades market, and then smuggling and the suffering of those animals. And so eventually everyone will get tired of saving the things that are purposely being brought into existence to suffer and be commodified for capitalism. Okay? And then eventually people will wake up to how destructive the veterinary system is, because it's breeding and overbreeding, warranting crazy fucking surgeries. And so eventually people will stop having children who will become homeless adults in the future, mentally ill, full of issues on the streets. The people who have animals today, eventually when they pass away, stop buying new animals. Okay, so when your animal passes away, stop adopting and buying new fucking animals. Make the shelter system responsible for all those animals. Make them go change the laws and find those who are breeding animals. And take away those animals and then fine them thousands and thousands of fucking dollars. But again, that's like, That's a lot of resources, Jillian. It's a lot of surveillance, Jillian. How are you gonna watch 100,000 people, and most of them, if not all of them, have an animal that they are breeding on the side, selling them all over fucking Facebook and everywhere else? Yeah, well, that's why we're in a scale down. That's why we're in a surveillance society. Eventually, some shit's gonna be coming up. Oh, people are not gonna like it. And so the people who have animals today, eventually when the animals pass away, stop buying new animals. Oh, but no, they're going to go replace it right over again. They're going to find another animal, go find a purebred, and go find another one to fill in the holes in their life. And so you are supporting the suffering of animals by buying animals all the time or giving them away for others to breed. Buying any animal or adopting any animal today supports the black market and the breeding of animals, backyard breeding, all kinds of breeding. Humans literally have to change the way they do things so they deserve to have a forever animal that will be forever. Not just a conversation piece or a cute thing. To be in deep relationship with something is forever. But given I'm in a world of death and I'm a person of life, my suffering is dealing with the inevitable deterioration of loved ones. So if I can mitigate that much death close to me, I'm going to do that. So yeah, I won't get another animal. Not in this society. Nope, nope, nope. Because even those that are purebred that you get from a reputable place, like, how are you going to fucking vet that out? There's shit. There's hip dysplasia in German Shepherds. There's so many predisposed issues in all the animals that are circulating out there, whether it's a purebred place or some reputable breeding place or some designer dog. There's predisposed issues in all of them. And you know how many times they've been bred over and over and over again. Okay, so they have papers. Big fucking deal. Is biotech going to develop forever animals? Well, we'd have to have a system supporting that. And we'd have to change the way, how we do stuff. And the climate has to be relatively stable so these animals aren't constantly suffering from the evolution of having to keep upgrading to the next environment. And so my suffering is dealing with the inevitable deterioration of loved ones around me. So if I can mitigate that much death close to me, I'm going to do that. I have the relationships in my world I can handle passing away if they choose. Animals don't choose to be in this world. Somebody bred them and brought them into existence for capital, for money, and they had no intention of taking care of them. Or they were just irresponsible. Like I say all over Facebook, oh, my friend, she has puppies, we can't get rid of them, so here, you want a puppy? Oh my God, my fucking God. That just burns me up. Children do not ask to be in this world. They were either an accident, or they were planned, or they were a product of a temporary relationship. I know people run pet stores, orphanages, and zoos. Eventually that will even go to the wayside at some point. The downfall of any society is the deterioration process of the human and the animal. In the wild, how do you control reproduction? That's called the circle of life. Humans can control the circle in their life. They don't have to act like wild fucking animals, but they do. Oh, but they do. And you're seeing it all over Facebook. Humans right now are acting like wild animals. And so we have to bring humans up to an adult level. And right now, the world is full of children having children, breeding children. Right now, during this transition process, we could have forever humans taking care of temporary animals because they're dealing with fucked up genetics, giving these animals a good life until they die. But I couldn't fucking do it. But I give you props if you could do it and it doesn't get to you. And so in my opinion, I'd rather have a forever human take care of a temporary animal until we stop developing temporary animals. But that would mean we'd have to have more forever humans than temporary humans, or else we're just, again, supporting the commodification of animals for the temporary people to make a quick buck and escape responsibility. And that gets fucking old. I get tired of taking care of other people's kids or their animals. The world will also get tired of that as well. If it's not already, they're tired of it. And they are. And so yeah, so I posted this about people in the Died Suddenly groups. So yeah, you see right now how I feel about the whole breeding of animals, the adoption, my own personal experience. I can now speak from experience. I owned an animal for 8 fucking years and was there for her 24/7. and I try to turn her around. So yeah, I can speak from total experience, and I see where I went wrong, well, not wrong, but where I could improve the situation by having a doggy door. Okay. So that way it wasn't such a strain on me having to be there all the time to let her in and let her out. But again, you'd have to have everything reinforced, everything closed in, fence line, reinforced, and a lot more space than what we have. And so, I mean, she was fine for what she was a temporary animal for the temporary situation. But that's not a long-term thing. That's not a fucking long-term thing. And so I can only imagine when somebody that has a very small apartment with an animal, what kind of fucking life the animal has. When two people are working and the animal has to stay home, whether in a cage or not, by themselves, all day long, by themselves. That can't be a life for the animal. That's what I'm saying. That's not a life. And so, I'll read this. So YKW is you know what, meaning VAX. When people still hold if-then programming from an old world, from an old environment before climate change, and then the climate changes and they don't change their lifestyle belief system, they won't survive. That's why you're seeing so many people drop like flies. You must have the substance to use so when you blow your nose and sneeze and poop, you have something to release the demons and also keep on reserve. You must develop mucus protein carrier forces to carry out the excessive particles in the atmosphere. That's why you have to release and feel sick, especially if it's really aggressive, like it is right now, with all this haze from the Canadian wildfires. So if you live in the UK and they're going through their own climate change, you got to have substance to release the old demons so they're not cannibalizing your vital organs and deteriorating your adipose tissue. And you have to bring in all the substance. Okay? Because then if you're cured and you're not bringing all the substance and releasing, then yeah, the things inside of you are cannibalizing. The particle acceleration from all the climate change and everything else is cannibalizing the things that potentially will turn into something very fast moving and diagnosable. And so that's why you have to release and feel sick, especially if it's really aggressive, like it is right now with all this haze from the Canadian wildfires. That's why you can't afford to starve yourself or be really skinny in this environment. You really need the extra substance. That's your insurance policy. And you need to eat. Everything can be simplified down to computer codes and characters and strategically developed syntax. Okay. And so the whole, if you eat, then you will not only reinforce what you already have in your vital organs everywhere else, but you also will give your body substance to release. You will give your body substance to carry out the excessive microbes that could cause potential diagnosable conditions. But if you're not eating to the point where you're releasing on that level and you're not gaining the substance, then your body is not going to feel the evolution. But why should I get myself sick? If I feel good, why should I make myself sick? Because you're in climate change right now. Climate change means that you have to evolve. The fact that you're skinny says that you won't have what it takes to be able to handle the environment as it goes. It's just eating the food you have. It's just keeping you maintained. But again, when the environment changes that much, again, even more so, then you got to take in double the food and you got to feel sick. I don't want to feel sick. Okay. Then you'll waste away. You will age aggressively. You will age faster. That's what the aging process has been. So the climate was always changing from the cold and flu season before climate change and spring allergy season. They're taking all the remedies and surgeries and diets and detoxes and all the different therapies, and people were deteriorating. Of course, that's the aging process. And so now in this accelerated environment, you can't that now you have to change. Well, you don't have to, but the whole J world is trying to redirect you from that process, because that old way of thinking of that I'll die someday and I'll go through the aging process is going to be accelerated. You're going to die sooner. You're going to deteriorate sooner, and you're going to have a diagnosable condition that will be so aggressive that you won't get ahead of it. That's why now you have to change everything, the way you see things. Getting sick is not bad. Taking on the massive amounts of cream and protein and feeling bloated, not using J juice to release the demons, because that will cure you and you won't feel anything, and then diet suddenlies are in the future. And so everything can be simplified down to computer codes, characters, and strategically developed syntax. If you choose ignorance, the easier it will be to control you. And so, yeah, Microsoft Excel allows you to perform if-then equations, strategically developed script for specific algorithms. And so has biotech. They use Microsoft Excel. They use all the different programs in Microsoft in the computers, then translating to computer models for biotech to then do if-then equations with proteins and specific types of proteins that are programmed for certain specific equations and script and if-then programming. And so certain types of programming that's done by the if-then are in politics, religion, and science. That's also another brainwashing. That's programming documents, people, proteins, and machines. When you're using positive and negative reinforcement, like I said earlier, that's programming people. That's behavior modification. My mother, she's a master's in science for behavior modification. My dad, bachelor's in science and chemical engineering. That's a perfect fucking storm with the law degree in the background. Another perfect fucking storm. And then I'm in Silicon Valley, all of technology. You know, I went to college with a bunch of people from Intel and Microsoft and government agencies. They're going to night school getting their degrees so they can still work, just like me. Okay? And in organizational development, and then learning certain types of skills and programming of doing process flow diagrams and using specific Microsoft programs to develop organizational structures and process flows with decision points, where you're training your brain to understand point A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, not just go, oh, hey, I want to know A, Z, and that's it. Just give me the problem, give me the answer, and that's all I want to know. No, I want to know how you got to that answer and why, and what the truths that you're telling me, and if I could change that truth and have a different outcome. Okay? And so, yeah. So that's behavior modification. That's protein behavior modification. That's all fucking religions, all science, and definitely all politics. And then the parents brainwash their children and animals into destruction. Yeah, once you give your time to the system, you could potentially release the programming if you survive. But if you're hot, if you're hella skinny or extremely obese, it will be a process. If you are resisting change, forget it. If you resist change at all, forget it. You won't have what it takes. And I hope you survive. But obviously it's not going to happen if you resist change regardless of what it is. And so this is what I wrote. So this would be a trigger warning. I will be offensive. I am offensive towards the end of this post. So simple, uncomplex proteins in a petri dish, you can probably attribute correlation equals causation. Okay, that's the if-then. But you are 69 trillion microbes with an infrastructure made up of infinite proteins. It is not that simple to apply correlation equals causation. But someone programmed you into correlation equals causation, the if-then. But when you think about it biochemically, okay, the whole correlation equals causation, if-then religions against salt and meat and milk and cheese and eggs and all that shit, it's not that simple. You are far more complex and adaptable than led to believe. That's why dropping the correlation equals causation is paramount to those who want to be complex and adaptable. The system of control using you has made many people extremely simple, and so to them, correlation will equal causation, and potentially those who are skinny might experience that concept. But those who have more substance do not need to starve themselves to make that concept to be relatively true. And that's why I was so upset at that situation where my husband was listening to somebody on fucking TikTok. Now I'm going to do a fasting. No, you're fucking not. You better fucking eat. Okay? And so, however, you are far more complex than you even know. Bring on the substance, and then you have the power. Big, obese is all relative, so do not starve yourself and cater to the lowest common denominator, because that person has issues with food. Relatively balanced people listen to skinny fucks and taking health advice from them and starving the relatively balanced people, and I fucking hate that. Sorry, skinny fucks. Please gain weight and stop giving health advice to people with substance, such as starving them. And I say stop it. It's like a type O person taking advice from a blood type AB person. Okay, so I'm type O, And so I have substance to me. And some blood type AB person who has issues with food, issues with everything, says, okay, you can't eat this, and this. And so me listening to someone who is blood type A and B, who has so much energy conversion and can't handle food, can't handle the meat, the milk, and the cheese and eggs, are only eating vegetables and lettuce, telling me, well, you should fast. You should only eat this, and this, because I can only eat this and this and this and this. And so a blood type A and B person giving health advice, I don't care what it is, to a type O person, you're now trying to turn them into a starving person. You're trying to make them into your image. That's why I abhor the holistic system. And so I'm animated right now because my hubby was mentioning fasting, listening to some fucked up holistic dude on TikTok, and I will be damned if some trendy, skinny, ponytail wearing guru will starve my husband. He or anyone in his job in this environment cannot afford to fucking starve themselves at all. Take a shit if you need to rejuvenate yourselves. And that's what I'm saying. Releasing the demons, right? Releasing that poop will give you some relief. If you think that's what the whole fasting, you don't fast on this end and starve yourself. You release the shit on the other end. And if you have to dig it out, fucking dig it out. Okay? If you drink a bunch of milk so you can shit, then take a shit. But do not starve yourself because you think it's supposed to be healthy from some skinny dude or girl or guy, some hot girl or guy that's wearing a ponytail, a bun, telling you, oh yeah, air sandwiches, be a breatharian. Just walk away, but whatever. He or anyone in his job, because he's a trucker, and he's built like the people in his job, built like brick shit houses. They have to have the strength, the fat, the muscle to do his job and to maintain his job. If he starts listening to those little skinny people out there, he will age faster and become so decrepit from the holistic system. So he or anyone in his job in this environment cannot afford to fucking starve themselves at all. And so again, those who are really obese, pull the shit out of your ass. And keep eating and keep pulling crap out of your ass. And keep eating, pulling crap out of your ass. It's the crap that's making you tortured, and your lack of food, and all that crap in your ass. Okay? That's why people who are obese because they have a big, huge ass turd that made them big. And they gotta work that shit out, literally. And so take a shit if you need to rejuvenate yourselves. Shut up, holistic malnourished people, and leave my hubby alone. Oh, I will fight. I mean, my husband is not like as animated as I am. I mean, he is definitely way opposite of me, and that's fine. I mean, if he has to defend me, he will, but I don't want to ever put him in a position where he has to fight somebody for me. No. But intellectually, I will fight for my fucking husband. Intellectually, absolutely. I let my hubby know how dangerous that is, but he will choose. Again, he will choose. I can't make decisions for him. But that's what we're facing right now. Is that people are full of shit, and that shit and the shit in their body and all those little demons inside are torturing them. They're starving themselves. They're riding on that wave of being cured and not feeling anything. And so while you're like a live wire, skinny out there in this environment, eventually when you're the Energizer Bunny like that, and you're not bringing on the weight to deal with all that stuff and bringing up all that stuff. What stuff? Bringing up all your predisposed issues, releasing the demons so you can convert yourself to a different existence. Eventually, it's like died suddenly. It's just shut down. There'll just be a shutdown. Or you'll get you start seeing, you won't have the respiratory issues anymore or feel like all like the headache and the sick. You will actually you will notice losing cognitive abilities. You will break things. Bones will be breaking. Deterioration of your cognitive, neurological ability. If it's not a diet suddenly, then it's an aggressive deterioration. Major aggressive. Okay? And I'll tell you, when I walk up and down the stairs and I'm running around, in my flip-flops and everything, I know I have packed on the meat, the milk, the cheese, the eggs, the fruits and vegetables. I go bigger, I go smaller relative to the conditions. I know my bones are strong. I don't have any kind of osteoporosis. I know my bones are strong. But again, people don't know their bones are weak until they break them. And then that should be an indicator, oh crap, you need to start changing the way you do shit. Breaking bones and having neurological conditions are a huge indicator that shit needs to change. If not, okay, then it's going to watch that deterioration process become even more so and more so and more so. And then, oh my God, then there is no coming back. There is no coming back. Okay? That's why these parents with kids are breaking bones should realize, there's something needs to change. But you know how shit goes. All right, I'm done. But I wanted to read all that and tell you that the if-then programming, that's in all politics, religion, science, and computer science, biological science, engineering science. If-then is everywhere. You can change the if-then programming, and you can do your own kinetic training to your own body to make it do what it's supposed to do relative to what you have understood how to become balanced, evolutionary, and it may require you changing the way you do stuff and taking a backseat, or having your lifestyle while your social stuff take a backseat, and figure out a strategy. All right? And as far as the whole pet stuff, I don't know. I'm not getting a pet, but we'll just watch how this shit goes. All right, bye.